What's up, crazy people? It's Nick Teller. This is Band Management Lesson 3, the bonus video that actually is supposed to tail in for the touring/press kits. This is just a little story of a band that got signed out of Knoxville called 10 Years. They got signed I'd say about 3 or 4 years ago. They're doing really well right now, and I believe they made their 3rd album. And they toured with Hell Yeah, which was, pretty much Mudvayne. Korn. They've done overseas. They really hit it big. Now, with 10 Years, they were around for a while here in Knoxville, and they really grew into themselves and developed a style, which is, they're a really good band. But one of the things that they did was a unique way of doing it. Now, A&R guys from record labels will tell anybody, if you guys are a fresh band, say for instance you guys are in Indiana, or you guys are in Florida, or you guys are in Texas, or you guys are in Nebraska, or whatever. A lot of A&I guys for record labels will tell you, do not come to New York, do not come to Los Angeles. Because once you guys get there, you guys get lost in a sea of bands. Because you think about the typical cliche, hometown band, packs their stuff and goes to LA to become rock stars. And everybody has that idea. And no offense, but there's a lot of shitty bands out there, and you will get lost within them. There's so many venues in LA, there's so many venues in New York. If you think about it, there's about 30 to 50 shows in the surrounding areas of LA playing every night, especially Friday and Saturday. A lot of those people have been trying for years, and there are some good bands, and it just takes a while to find them because the scouts have to actually go to every one of these shows to just kind of weed out and say, okay, these guys suck, these guys suck, these guys have potential. Instead of doing that, you should stay where you are. Now, I understand if you guys are out in the middle of nowhere, you may have to move a little bit bigger city. Maybe there's, suburban city around. But what 10 Years did, which was really smart, is first off, they studied songwriting, and they made a really good single called Wasteland. They played that on the local hour at our 93X, or 94.3, sorry, I'm thinking we're in Memphis, but 94.3, the X, they had a local show called Sex, which was Southeast Exports. They played their Wasteland song on Southeast Exports, and it did great. And people were calling in and voting for it, and it just became, a local hometown hero. But what they did was amazing because they just told their friends, call the radio station all the time. I'm sure they called them too, just, trying to play anonymous. But they said, play that song during regular rotation. We want to hear it now. We want to hear it now. And then finally the radio station just gave it. And, they had copyrights. They had, it was registered. So they did. And it started going into heavy rotation, and then after a while it just became normal to hear it 10 times a day. What 10 Years did is that they did play in other cities, but they pretty much focused in Knoxville, and they would send their bandmates out to rock shows and pass out flyers for their own shows and just kind of talk hype, which you have to do that. And they made the actual album, bought a UPC, which we'll talk to you about how important that is, but they just sold CDs. I mean, they were flying off the shelves because people just couldn't get enough of that Wasteland song, and that's the power of a single. And when A&R guys, a lot of times, they'll send scouts, and they, if you guys ever met scouts, they're just paid, paid pretty much under the table or just measly dollars to hang out, and they get paid to watch shows. But they'll call records saying, record labels, these guys are good, these guys are bad, and they've been to so many shows they can just kind of already expect things, and they know what potential looks like. And 10 Years had it. They had the look, they had the sound, they had the marketing. A lot of record labels love when a band can actually promote themselves and work by themselves, because it's pretty much, if you see it from their point of view, here's a bunch of young kids that know how to market themselves, are doing pretty well by themselves, and they don't really have to do that much. They already have an image, they don't have to make them, so they just pick them up, invest in them, and make that much money off them. You're about to hear some thunder. But when they sold those CDs off the shelves, if you were to make an album and buy a UPC number, then every time you sell one in a store, it gets recorded to a website that only record labels and A&R guys can look at. One of the most popular is CD Baby, and there's other ones out there probably that the public doesn't even know about. And every time it's scanned and someone buys it, it gets recorded and sent back into a database. When you go tour a region, more than likely you're going to sell, maybe 30 in Atlanta, 16 in Memphis, 21 in Lexington, and it looks average when A&R guys see that, per week or whatever. They're like, okay, that looks normal as a working band. They're really not that much to look at. But what 10 Years was selling only in one place, because they focused all their energy in Knoxville, is that they were actually selling more than 100 CDs a week consistently for like a month. And it caught the eyes of the A&R guys, and they sent their own scout down, and of course they had to perform a show at one of the biggest venues over here, which was Blue Cats at the time. And they nailed it, and they looked good, and the label actually thought they were worth the time to invest, and they got signed. They didn't really have to work that hard, and I understand, well, I say that, but they've been around for years. They did have to work that hard, but it was a unique story because you always hear of bands, stretching themselves thin, going across the country. And what they did was pretty smart. So I just want to let you guys know about that. It's a nice little story, and it actually should get you thinking that if you're unique and you can catch the eye of the labels, and if you can actually market your own band and work proficiently, that you don't have to do the traditional way of actually getting signed or found. I know Linkin Park had that story when they made their first album and played their first show for a big venue, and they got signed that night. But then again, they had a very unique sound at the time, and then it got wore out with that rap rock. Nonetheless, you should take stories, you listen as, just keep your ear out. Listen to stories. There's going to be a lot of BS out there, people just trying to, make up stories or say, oh, I met this guy or I know this guy. Be nice to everybody, shake hands, don't ever be cocky, because you never really know who can help you out and who don't. I'm not saying kiss everyone's ass, but at least just be yourself and just shake hands and just be cool. So, that's about it for this time, and I'll talk to you guys later.